now 2 minutes to the bomb run. No fighters, no flak as yet. Primary is no-go. 3 passes and the aim point still obscured. Flak's accurate for altitude and getting close. Navigator plot course southwest to Nagasaki.
In 1942, when Nazi Germany controlled much of Europe, the United States and its allies were working on the most secretive, ambitious project in history, the Manhattan Project. A race to beat the Nazis to the first atomic bomb. The weapon was developed at Los Alamos, high above Santa Fe, New Mexico, where scientists built a plutonium implosion device. After years of round-the-clock research and industrial effort, they proved it could work. Just before dawn on July 16, 1945, at a remote site called Trinity in the Hornado del Muerto Desert, the device nicknamed the gadget detonated with a yield of about 21 kilotons. Night turned to day, and a man-made sun rose over the desert. President Harry Truman was in Potdam when news of Trinity reached him. A coded cable from New Mexico reported the test had been successful beyond expectations. It changed the tone of the conference, with Churchill and Stalin as the table. Truman now knew the bomb worked. On July 24th, he told Stalin, deliberately vague, that the United States had a weapon of unusual destructive power. Stalin, with a smirk, replied, "I hope you'll make good use of it against the Japanese," knowing full well about the secrets of the Manhattan Project through espionage. 2 days later, on July 26th, came the Potdam Declaration, issued by the United States, Britain, and China. It called on Japan to surrender unconditionally, promised no enslavement of the nation, but demanded disarmament and war crimes trials, and warned that if Japan failed to meet these demands, it would face prompt and utter destruction. In Tokyo, the divided leadership effectively did not accept, choosing to ignore the declaration with silence while pursuing a last-ditch hope for Soviet mediation. But even before that answer, the machinery was in motion. On July 25th, Truman approved General Karl Spart's order, authorizing the composite group to deliver atomic bombs as soon after August 3rd, as weather permitted, against a target list that included Hiroshima, Kakura, Nagata, and Nagasaki. Kyoto was once at the top of the list for the atomic bomb, but Secretary of War Henry Stimson argued against it. He believed preserving Kyoto, the cultural heart of Japan, was vital for post-war reconciliation. Tokyo was ruled out due to extensive firebombing, making damage assessment impossible. Instead, Hiroshima remained largely untouched, making it the ideal site to gauge the bomb's effects. On August 6, 1945, the mission began at Northfield Air Base on Tinian Island. At 2:45 a.m., the Enola Gay, piloted by Colonel Paul Tibbets, took off with Little Boy on board. Weather was clear, and the mission was on course, with 2 accompanying aircraft following closely behind. Little Boy was a gun-type uranium-235 Fisian bomb, weighing approximately 9,700 pounds, or about 4,400 kilograms, designed to achieve critical mass through the rapid firing of a uranium projectile into a uranium target. This sudden union would initiate an uncontrolled chain reaction, releasing the equivalent explosive force of approximately 15,000 tons, or 15 kilotons, of TNT. After a 6-hour flight covering roughly 500 miles, or about 2,400 kilometers, the formation approached the Japanese mainland around 700 AM. Weather reconnaissance aircraft Straight Flush had earlier confirmed clear skies over Hiroshima, sealing the city's fate. Approaching at an altitude of 31,000 feet, or about 9.5 kilometers, Tibbets began his bombing run, handing final control to Bombardier Major Thomas Farabee. Japanese radar detected the small group of aircraft around 7:09 a.m., prompting initial air raid sirens in Hiroshima. However, when observers realized it was only 3 planes, the military assumed it was merely a reconnaissance mission rather than a bombing raid. Tragically, they canceled the alert, allowing daily life to resume in the city. At 8:09 a.m., the target Ioi Bridge near the city center came clearly into view through Farabee's Norden bomb site. Precisely at 8:15 a.m., as Enola Gay reached the optimal release point, Farah triggered the mechanism, opening the bomb bay doors and releasing Little Boy toward Hiroshima. Approximately 43 seconds after release, Little Boy reached its predetermined detonation altitude of 600 meters, or just over 650 wadi above the Shimmer Surgical Clinic, missing the intended target, Ioi Bridge, by roughly 240 meters or about 260 yard. At this precise height, radar alarmers triggered internal mechanisms that fired the uranium projectile into the target, initiating an instantaneous, unstoppable nuclear chain reaction. The explosion occurred in less than a microcond, unleashing energy equivalent to approximately 15 kilotons of TNT. Instantly, a brilliant blinding flash of white light engulfed the city, visible for miles around, momentarily brighter than the sun. Observers on the ground described an intense burst followed by an enormous, deafening boom. A fiery nuclear fireball formed, rapidly expanding to about 200 mi, or 216.88 in radius, vaporizing everything it touched. Radiating outward, the blast wave produced staggering devastation. Within roughly 340 menyamaras or 370 Gordard, nearly all reinforced concrete buildings were obliterated with fatalities approaching 100%. Outward to about 1.7 kilometers or just over a mile. Residential buildings collapsed, widespread fires ignited, and massive loss of life occurred. At even greater distances up to 4.5 kilometers or 2.8 misimi, the shockwave shattered windows, injuring thousands who had curiously approached windows after seeing the flash. The intense thermal radiation inflicted burns, penetrating skin layers deeply and rendering thousands of survivors severely disfigured or disabled. Within approximately 2 kilometers or 1.2 mi, the heat was severe enough to cause instantaneous burns, and fires erupted throughout the city, creating a deadly firestorm that raged for hours. Of Hiroshima's roughly 350,000 inhabitants, approximately 70,000 to 80,000 people died instantly from the blast, heat, and immediate radiation, many leaving only eerie human-shaped shadows behind, permanently etched into pavement and walls. Thousands more perished over the following months and years, succumbing to radiation sickness, burns, and associated cancers, pushing total casualties to well over 140,000 people by the end of 1945 alone. Later that same day, President Truman addressed the world solemnly declaring that if Japan did not surrender, if they do not now accept our terms, they may expect a rain of ruin from the air the like of which has never been seen on this earth. Despite the unprecedented destruction, Japan's leaders, paralyzed by internal division and disbelief, still did not offer surrender. So the decision followed to drop another atomic bomb. On August 9th, 1945, 3 days after Hiroshima was destroyed, another meticulously planned atomic bombing mission took off from Northfield Air Base on Tinian Island, aiming to compel Japan's surrender. This time, 6 B-29 aircraft were assigned specific roles. The primary aircraft, a silver B, named Boxcar, piloted by Major Charles Sweeney, carried Fat Man, a plutonium-based implosion-type atomic bomb, far more sophisticated and powerful than the uranium-based device used on Hiroshima. The great artiste was tasked again with blast measurement instrumentation, while Big Stink was assigned photographic documentation. 2 weather reconnaissance planes, Enola Gay monitoring conditions over Kokura, and Lagin Dragon checking. Nagasaki flew ahead, and a spare aircraft full house returned early due to technical issues and did not proceed to the target. Shortly after takeoff, Boxcar faced a significant problem. A fuel transfer pump failed, leaving around 640 gall of fuel unusable. Meanwhile, Big Stink failed to correctly make the planned rendezvous over Yakushima Island south of the Japanese mainland. Flying at the wrong altitude and executing long dogleg patterns rather than the briefed tight circles, causing confusion and delay, the formation proceeded toward Kokura, their primary target. Upon arrival, visibility was critically impaired, partially due to clouds, but mostly because workers at the nearby Yahata Steelworks deliberately burned coal tar to create thick black smoke, intentionally obscuring the city from bombing raids. Boxcar attempted 3 separate bombing runs over Kokura, each unsuccessful as Bombardier Captain Kermit Bayan struggled to visually confirm the aiming point. The failed attempt on Kokura later gave rise to the phrase Kokura's luck, referring to narrowly escaping disaster without even realizing it. As Boxcar turned southwest toward Nagasaki, fuel became critically low. Although the crew had agreed beforehand that landing with a fully armed atomic bomb was too risky, making ditching the Fat Man at sea preferable, it was decided that radar bombing over Nagasaki could be performed if visual targeting failed, with jettisoning as a last resort only. Shortly before 11 o'clock a.m., the formation arrived over Nagasaki. Visibility here too was poor, but a sudden break in cloud cover allowed Bien a momentary visual confirmation of the target. At precisely 11 o'clock a.m., the great artiste dropped instrument packages designed to measure the blast. Instrument canister away. Shoots good. Signals live. Roger. Great artistes. Hold your track. We're awaiting visual on target. At exactly 11:02 a.m., Fat Man detonated above Nagasaki, unleashing another devastating atomic blast upon Japan. Fat Man detonated approximately 503 mr, or 550 WD above Nagasaki, exploding with a yield of roughly 21 kilotons. Immediately, an immense nuclear fireball measuring around 222 or 243 yard in radius engulfed the city center, momentarily generating temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. Anything within this volume was simply obliterated. Buildings, vehicles, and human beings erased from existence in a blinding flash. The initial blast wave extended outwards, delivering catastrophic destruction within a radius of roughly 760 mrs or 830 yard, where reinforced concrete buildings were demolished. Within a wider radius of about 1.7 kilometers or just above a mile, residential and commercial buildings collapsed, fires ignited uncontrollably, and casualties became widespread. Tens of thousands of Nagasaki's residents experienced severe injuries or were trapped beneath debris. By the end of 1945, approximately 60,000 to 80,000 people in Nagasaki had perished from the explosion, fires, and immediate radiation effects. Adding to Japan's problems, just before midnight on August 8th, the Soviet Union launched a massive invasion of Japanese-held Manchuria, shattering any hope for Soviet mediation. Facing the overwhelming reality of dual catastrophes, the devastation from atomic bombings and the massive Soviet offensive, Emperor Hirohito acknowledged the futility of continued resistance. He declared to his people that the enemy possessed a new and most cruel bomb. Finally, on August 15, 1945, Japan announced its unconditional surrender. The formal surrender document was signed aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay on September 2, 1945, officially ending World War II. Today, 80 years have passed since humanity first unleashed atomic destruction upon itself. 8 decades since that fateful event, often called man's last bomb, the world still lives under the shadow of nuclear annihilation. The hope remains that Hiroshima and Nagasaki will forever mark the first, the last, and only time these weapons were ever used in war.